What is going on, guys? It's David from AquaOtter, and welcome back to another One Piece chapter review. This week we're talking about chapter 1007, Mr. Raccoon Dog. What a crazy chapter. If you guys haven't read it, please go look at it before you check out this video. It's one of those chapters where it's like middling all the way through, and then like right towards the latter, like the last like 5-10 pages, goes absolutely buck wild. Yeah, but I digress. We're going to hop right into the chapter review because I really want to talk about what I think is going on here, what's happening at the end of the story, what it means for the story, what it certainly means for the rest of the Wano arc. And, yeah, like I said, the reveals in this one, Oda's... I can definitely tell that Act 3 is gearing down because the reveals in this one... Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to start with the cover page, which it's just a normal cover page reader request. It's Caesar Clown. He's giving a bunch of little penguin children gas-filled balloons. And I just want to mention this because it's something I picked up on. I'm not sure if it's intentional. I'm not sure if I'm right in this, but all the little penguins, they're wearing hats. And I'm not sure if the hats are supposed to be referential to other hats that we've seen in the series, because one of the penguins, he's wearing like a straw hat that you would see like a barbershop quartet person would wear with like the flat top instead of the normal like the normal straw hat Luffy, like curved dome, top straw hat. And another one of them is wearing kind of like a cowboy-ish hat with the strings coming down from it. And it doesn't exactly look like, but it reminds me a lot of Ace's hat, so I wasn't sure if that was actually supposed to be a thing, but I wanted to mention it because it's just something I picked up on and I thought it was kind of cool. But so we pick right back up from the end of the last chapter. We're still in the performance hall, and the Beast Pirates, they're actually they're calling out about the Oniwabanshu and the Mimiwari Gumi, which were the forces that were basically primarily attacking Hyogoro in the last chapter. And you see now as they call out and they call out to the high-ranking members of the Oniwabanshu and the Mimiwari Gumi. They're calling out for Kazekage and Commander Hote, like the high-ranking members of those two groups. And they're like completely knocked down. You're actually starting to see some of the carnage that we saw Hyogoro wreck in the last chapter. And they're reacting actually to the carnage and kind of the strength of Hyogoro. And they're saying, so this is the power of one of the legendary Yakuza. And Apu is reacting, and he's very confused as to why. He's like, he managed to resist the effects of the Ice Oni, but he utilized its strength. And you see Drake there, and Drake is reacting to it as well, and he's saying, I'm starting to understand now why people fear Wano. And so we go over at this point to the to right where we were at the very end of the last chapter. We have the one Yakuza boss with his sword up in the air right above Hyogoro's head, and Hyogoro is saying, clear your mind, be at ease, because you have to do it now. If I turn into an Ice Oni, I will surely go on a rampage, and I will destroy you all. And the samurai and the other Yakuza members, they're all crying seeing this, and one of the other Yakuza members is watching this go down, and with tears in their eyes, they're saying, of course he's having a hard time. You were like a father to all of us. And you actually see one of the other Yakuza bosses, because remember in the prison there were the 4 Yakuza bosses, and then Hyogoro the Flower was the one. He was like the leader of the entire Yakuza. And so the other two now, one of them is in a very similar situation to Hyo, where he's starting to be taken over by the Ice Oni virus. And the other one has his sword up above his head, ready to cut his head off. And he's saying the same thing. He's like, do it now, end me. I could never forgive myself if I turned and I hurt you guys. And the samurai and everyone, they're on their knees, they're praying, they're saying, isn't there anything that we can do? We just needed a bit more time. And they're calling out for Chopper, Mr. Raccoon Dog. Isn't there anything that we can do? And it's at this point that the Beast Pirates that are also being affected by the Ice Oni, they actually see Queen, who is kind of walking back to his battle from the last chapter. He's walking back to his battle with Marco, and they start yelling out for him, trying to beg him for help. And they're asking him, they're saying, why must we suffer? Why must we die by our own boss's virus? And Queen hears this, and he just gets absolutely enraged, turns back into his Brachiosaur form, and he starts yelling out at them. He says, shut up, you nobodies. Ice Oni is my masterpiece. I made this for you. And all the Beast Pirates are very confused by this, and he basically says that all of the pleasures are already useless because they already took the bites out of the smiles trying to get powers, and they failed, and now all they do is just laugh. And all of the waiters, there's no more smile fruits coming. The Straw Hats, they destroyed Punk Hazard, so the SAD, in order to make the smiles, have been destroyed, and they went and they took down Doflamingo in Dressrosa and liberated all of the Tontadas, so the Smile Factory is destroyed, so there's no more smiles coming in. So basically he says that the waiters, they're no use to them because they're going to be waiting forever. So if they want to be of any use to the Beast Pirates at all, they should just die in a meaningful way by turning into Ice Oni and helping to kill as many people as they can before they die. And one of the Beast Pirates are now reacting to this. They're all in shock, and one of them just says, "It sounds like you're telling us to just die." And this panel, the panel at the end of this page, it's just Queen, like very close up of Queen's face, very sinister looking, and he says, "Of course that's what I'm saying. We can always find more soldiers." So the Beast Pirates are all reacting to this. They're really like shocked, and they're saying things like, I can't believe it, like this is so wrong. And Queen says, well, I gave you a chance of survival. A few of you could have survived if you had managed to get your hands on the antibodies, or if you had managed to keep a hold of the antibodies. The Beast Pirates are all saying, the ones that are being affected by all this, are saying, that's it, I'm not going to go out like this. Cut down any Ice Oni, whether it's a friend or a foe, it doesn't matter. And one of them even says, there's the one speech bubble that says, as soon as I survive this ordeal, I'm quitting this pirate crew. So already we knew already that the Beast Pirates were going to start swapping over to our side. A lot of people had been theorizing that like once Chopper came through with the cure here, a lot of the Beast Pirates were going to end up flipping to the other side. So now we have people being brought over to our side in two separate ways. We have people who are kind of sick. They're realizing that they were being used as fodder, and so they're like, as soon as we get through this, I'm done, And we also have Tama with her dumplings that are going to start bringing people over to our other side. So we're slowly starting to see the tide of battle shift here. And at this point, Queen just starts kind of bad-mouthing Chopper. And he's basically saying to all the samurai, the samurai, I should say, right before this, they also react to what Queen just said. And they're saying, even though there are enemies, the thought of what's happening to them is making me sick to my stomach. Like there's no honor in it. And so Queen starts saying to all of the samurai, she starts bad-mouthing Chopper, and he says, you may all think that you're fighting the good fight, but Chopper's a pirate. That doctor that you're all waiting on, who is your only hope, he's a pirate. He's just going to take those antibodies when he's done. He's going to give them to himself, and he's going to run away. He's going to leave you all to die. And they react, of course, by sticking up for Chopper, saying, no, that's just what you would do. And then Queen responds by saying, no, all pirates are the same. We stab each other in the back. That's what we do. And then we see the samurai in Hyogoro still hasn't cut his head off. Like, he was begging for him to cut his head off. I said in my chapter review last time that Hyo was definitely not dying. Like, I was pretty sure he was not dying. And if you haven't got it by now from how many times we've flashed over to him and he's still alive and the guy still hasn't cut his head off, he's definitely not dying, which is what happens here. So the guy who has the sword up above his head, he basically says, don't worry, boss. I'll take you down. Like, I'll take you out. I'll be joining you soon. And Hyogoro says, don't be rushing. Take your time to come join me. And right as the katana comes down, something blocks it off and yells, wait. And then you see something being injected into Hyo's mouth. And then there's this close-up panel of Chopper making this really cute face. He's got his eyes all big little smile on his face. And he says, I made it just in time. And everyone yells out, Mr. Raccoon Dog. And keep in mind how many people are calling him Mr. Raccoon Dog. Every time that the samurai have referred to Chopper all this time, they keep calling him Mr. Raccoon Dog, Mr. Raccoon Dog. I only want to talk about that now because it becomes relevant in a little bit. But he basically says that, the antibodies are done. This is going to superheat your body. It's going to cure, burn out the Ice Oni virus from inside you. And he calls for Miyagi and Tristan, and everyone's celebrating. We knew you'd come through, Mr. Raccoon Dog. And Miyagi and Tristan, they roll out a cannon, and they launch something out of the cannon into the crowd of the people. And there's this giant mushroom cloud that appears with Chopper's face on it. And Chopper yells out, Chopper Phage Nebulizer. And Queen turns his attention towards Chopper and says, what do you think you're doing, Raccoon Dog? And so Chopper basically says, there are thousands upon thousands of people on the floor here that are infected with the virus. It would be impossible to inject every single one with the cure. So he decides that instead of just creating the antibodies, he uses the antibodies to create his own virus, which will end up, spreading through all the people on the floor, and it will cure the Ice Oni virus, because he says he's going to use a good virus to fight the bad virus. And he says that in the way that he did it, in developing his own virus, it allows him to administer the antibodies to everyone through the mist. And, the virus will spread to everybody, and eventually Queen's poison, the Ice Oni virus, will be eradicated. And so Queen's in shock from all this. He says, where did a doctor from out of nowhere get this kind of medical knowledge? And Chopper references the time skip, and he says, we all took a break for 2 years, and we trained really, really hard for this. And Queen says, well, why would you even bother curing my guys? Why would you bother curing the Ice Oni virus from your enemies? And Chopper responds, and we kind of saw this all the way back in Thriller Bark, in his fight with Hogback. Chopper has very set principles as a doctor. Like, he is a pirate, but he's a doctor first. And remember, Chopper's dream is to eventually be able to cure any disease. He wants to make sure that no one in the world will ever have to suffer from losing someone to a disease the way that he had to suffer losing Hiruluk, because that was Dr. Hiruluk's dream, was to be able to cure anything. And he says to Queen, he says, viruses aren't meant to be used as weapons. They'll always come back and bite you. They'll always slip out of your control in the end. And so Queen starts raging at this point, and he starts yelling, I don't need to take lessons from a stupid raccoon dog. Just who do you think I am? And at this point, this is where we start to see it. A bunch of the pleasures actually physically put themselves in between Chopper and Queen. And Queen's like, what are you doing? And so the pleasures basically say, like, shut up, Queen. You just tried to kill all of us. You tried killing our brothers in arms. So why are we just going to sit here and let you kill the guy who saved our lives? Mr. Raccoon Dog is the one who saved our lives. We would rather die on the side of someone who saved us than continue to fight for you. And all of the beast pirates that are in the room at this point, he yells out, he's like, isn't that right, boys? And all of them agree, like, yes, of course, thank you, Mr. Raccoon Dog. They keep thanking him. And Marco comes up, and he brings out one of his fire wings, and he grabs it around Queen's neck, holding him in place. And he basically says, like, good job, Raccoon Dog. Now pop him. And I really like this panel of him telling Chopper to just go ahead and pop Queen. Like, it's just... It's so low key, but it's just one of those like little moments where it's like, it's funny. It's like welcome, because we've been waiting for a little while to now see this happen. And it's just, I really appreciate, it's just such a small panel. But so Chopper thanks Marco, and he basically says, I just have one more thing I want to say, though. And then he goes full Monster Point, and he smacks Queen, and he says, I'm not a raccoon dog. And I love this. It's one of Oda's like 1.5 page spreads. You get Chopper in his full Monster Point. Queen's face is like, he's like, he just got like absolutely slapped. And then down below, underneath this big panel of Chopper in the Monster Point, you see like the samurai and the beast pirates and Hyo and Marco and everybody, and they're all just like, they've got like this really weird look on their faces, and they have all their hands up like this, and they're like, there's this like collective thought bubble that's in the middle of all the little panels where you see everybody, and it's like, oh, so sorry, because they've been calling Chopper Raccoon Dog for ages now. And that's going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about how I wanted to specifically call out how many times they use the words Raccoon Dog. In this chapter specifically, they use Raccoon Dog, Raccoon Dog, Mr. Raccoon Dog, they keep calling him. The name of the chapter, Mr. Raccoon Dog. And that's just Chopper's one response is, I'm not a raccoon dog. He's a reindeer. He's a reindeer. I know he looks like a raccoon dog, but whatever. And I really like it because it's a moment of levity. Like, we've been waiting for this forever, so it's like, it kind of feels like a big weight is taken off the chest of the reader, because finally, like, this Ice Oni virus is taken care of. But also it's like, yeah, this is a really badass moment, but we gotta have just that little bit of comedy in there. It takes me back to that chapter up on the roof where the 3 supernova captains, they're basically all arguing, and it's this really badass moment, but then they decide to just have that little moment of like, whoever moves from Big Mom's attack first is a coward, okay? So just a tiny little bit of comedy there. But so now we're in the last 4 pages of the chapter, and this is where stuff starts getting intense. So we cut now back over to Yamato and Shinobu with Momo still inside Yamato's clothing. And, as they're running, Yamato is kind of giving Shinobu a little breakdown of how Onigashima is laid out. And Shinobu says to Momo, says, I hope you're not hurting in there, Master Momonosuke. And Momo says, no, I am hurting. He says, I feel disgusted with myself. And Yamato kind of gets this shocked look on their face. And Momo is saying, yeah, everyone thinks too highly of me. He says, I'm so weak and foolish. I can't do anything. I hate myself. And Shinobu says, no, Lord Momonosuke, you've been so brave. And Momonosuke is like, no. And he turns into his dragon form, popping out of Yamato's clothing. And he says, I have not been brave. And everyone is obviously really shocked by this. Yamato's got this look on their face like, oh, it's an eel? And Shinobu is really surprised at what Momo is saying as well, saying, oh, Lord Momonosuke. I think this is a really important moment in the growth of Momonosuke. I mean, he has come leaps and bounds since the Wano arc started, from the character that he was when we met him towards the end of Punk Hazard. And I really like this because right now, everyone is putting their lives on the line. And I even said, I can't remember if it was last chapter or the chapter before. The chapter where Yamato basically tells Momonosuke, get in my clothing. And then so that was chapter 1005. And then last chapter, in chapter 1006, when you see Momonosuke and he's clinging onto Yamato's back, and he's got that same old pervy look on his face with the nostrils upturned. I even said that I kind of hated that Momo was slipping back into this role, because when we saw Momo kind of training for the raid, it seemed like he was taking everything very, very seriously. I am the leader. I am the person who's going to lead all these people in the battle. But ever since the raid happened, and he had a little bit of his moments in the raid, being captured by Kanjuro, and then eventually managing to fight his way out, and that whole moment where he's being crucified, and he, yells out he refuses to give up his name. There's been some really badass moments with Momo in this chapter, but I really feel like this moment specifically, he now realizes that his people are out there fighting and dying, and what's he doing? He's running away. He's running for his life, and he's taking away really from his forces as well, because you have Yamato and you have Shinobu who could be fighting, could be helping fighting, but instead they're stuck basically babysitting him. So I'm very excited to see where this is going to go and where Momo's character is going to go. I think we're going to see some exponential growth from Momo, especially with what happens a little bit later, right at the end of the chapter. But I'll talk about that when that happens. But so the next page, we go back over into the guest hall, which we saw in chapter 1004, and we see CP0. And they're talking about Vegapunk. And the main CP0 guy says, back when the Navy had Kaido captured, way back in the day, which we knew about because when we were first introduced to Kaido, when he threw himself off the Sky Island, there was that whole thing that the narrator said about how he had been captured, he had ships sunk, but still, he couldn't die. And so he states that when the Navy had him captured, Vegapunk actually took some of Kaido's blood and dissected his bloodline elements and basically used those bloodline elements that he could find to create the Kaido fruit. I'm calling it the Kaido fruit. Kaido no Mi, if you will. But he used it to create that artificial devil fruit. And the artificial devil fruit was basically the Marines wanted it. This artificial devil fruit that was created using Kaido's DNA. And Vegapunk considered it a failure, so he never handed it over. And the guy says that it was being stored on Punk Hazard. The other members of CP0, they're like, well, Punk Hazard was destroyed. And the guy says, well, according to G5's report, there was still one lab that was functional within Punk Hazard. And he says, I was just thinking to myself, it's a good thing that was a total failure. And so now this is very relevant because we know, and we are just reminded in case anyone forgot, Momo ate that fruit and it wasn't a failure. I mean, it may be a failure because obviously he is, Kaido's dragon is blue, Momo's dragon is pink. Basically, I don't think it was quite a failure as much as Vegapunk thought. I'm thinking maybe Vegapunk even kind of lied to the government and said that, this fruit didn't work because he knew that it worked. And he knew that the power was going to be too dangerous. But this puts a very interesting chip on the field, because last chapter, I was very, very certain that Onigashima was going to fall and destroy the Flower Capital. I was 90% this is going to happen. But now I don't think so. I'm not sure, because Momo ate the Kaido fruit. So he, in theory, has all of the powers that Kaido does, which means he could possibly, and I don't know if he would be able to, or what, but we know that he is able to fly in the same method that Kaido is able to fly, because there was that moment where on Punk Hazard where Luffy finds Momo in the trash chute, and Luffy can't get up, but he does manage to get up because Momo goes into kind of this like trance and is able to fly using the clouds, which is the same thing that Kaido is doing to Onigashima in order to transport it. It's this whole thing with these clouds. So I'm assuming that this is kind of going to be how Momo gets us out, which does put the question of what exactly is the tragedy at the end of Act 3 going to be, but I think that this is kind of hinting towards the fact that maybe the Flower Capital is a little more safe than we thought it was. So now moving into the craziest thing that happens here at the end of the chapter, which is that in the final 2 pages, we go to the samurai in the treasure room, and the samurai are now awake, and they're questioning. They're like, who was it? Who was tending to us? And Kawamatsu says, I feel as though I saw, but no, that's impossible. And so Kinemon, he looks very somber. He looks less somber and more like angry. Like he's got this very complicated emotion on his face. Like he's upset, but like he's also angry, but he's like also angry at himself. And he says, Sir Luffy's group is up engaging with Kaido right now. And he basically tells everyone, like, the battle is still raging on all across the island. We need to go and rejoin the battle. And then the door to the treasure room gets thrown open. We see a silhouette. We'll talk about the silhouette because this is a silhouette that we don't end on. We know how in these last couple of chapters, Oda has liked to drop in those silhouettes and then leave us. We get the reveal right on the next page. But so the door opens up, we see the silhouette, and the silhouette says to them all, he says, you all look like hell, like look at what you've gone through. And then the final page, it's Odin. It's Odin. The silhouette is Odin. And he says, I've missed you all, you're so much older. And he looks a little bit different, like he looks a little bit older, definitely. He's got a little bit longer hair, like you can see in the back, his hair's a little bit longer. But What the heck? It's Odin? He's alive? What? And that's it. My reaction right now is essentially the same reaction that we get for the last like 2 panels. We see all of the samurai. They are completely knocked on their butts, and they're like, what is going on? And Kinemon looks at Odin. He's got tears in his eyes. The final panel of the chapter, and he calls out to him, Lord Odin. And what does this mean? What does this mean? I am so confused. How is he alive? Is it Odin? Is it actually Odin? Or is it somebody? I mean, it could be the one Kurzumi that has the clone fruit, but is the clone, are they still alive? Because Bon Clay has the clone fruit. And like, if they are alive, how does Bon Clay have the clone fruit? But also, like, this looks absolutely nothing like the silhouette that we saw at the end of that one chapter where we saw the peoples tending to the samurai. So like, if Odin's alive, does that mean that it definitely was Toki, and Odin and Toki are both alive? And they, like, I don't know, because Odin looks like a little bit older, but also like not too old. So like, maybe like they were around for like a year or 2, and then they managed to find each other, and they pushed each other forward in time to like this moment. But what does it mean? What does it mean? I have no clue. But we of course can't have a chapter next week. We're back on break. The next chapter comes out on the 28th. What does it mean? I'm so confused. So my thoughts on the chapter, my God, what a chapter. Like, it was, like I said at the beginning, it was one of those chapters that was like a mid-tier chapter, and then like right at the end, like those last 4 pages, like just drop after drop, like Momonosuke being fired up and like basically saying, I need to do something here. Like, I'm the person who's leading them. And then the CP0 reveal of the Kaido Devil Fruit, and the fact that we now know for sure, which is something that people have been theorizing forever, that like that Devil Fruit was Vegapunk's attempt at creating Kaido's Devil Fruit. It is definitely Kaido's Devil Fruit now, and Momo has it. And then those last 2 chapters, those last 2 pages, the Odin reveal. Like, so my predictions now for the next couple chapters are, man, totally up in the air. Like, nothing that I thought is going to happen. This chapter literally changed like my perspective on everything. I definitely think that all the fights that I predicted are still going to happen. In fact, we even kind of have it locked in now that Chopper is definitely fighting Queen. So King and Marco, Queen and Chopper, Perospero and Carrot, I think that takes care of everything. The only people we have left to check in with are, we need to know where Sanji's going to go. We need to know, because now I'm so confused. Is Sanji even, maybe Sanji is definitely catching up with Momo now, because if this is truly Odin can slap Jack. Oda can slap Jack like 3 ways to Sunday. So I don't think the samurai have anything to worry about with Jack going to check on them. So where's Sanji going to go? Where are Yamato and Momo going to end up? What is going on with Odin? What is going on with Odin? You know, I feel like I just keep repeating myself, but we literally saw him die. And you can say, like, okay, well, I guess the final death was in silhouette. I don't know how I feel about him being alive. I really don't. It changes everything. Literally everything. If this is truly Kozuki Odin, this changes everything. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Yeah, so 2 weeks from now, I will be back, and it'll be I already have my schedule for that week. I'm off, so I'm hype. I'm going to be able to get the review out on Sunday again, so I won't have to wait. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. I have really, really appreciated the support that these videos have been getting. If you liked this video, if you want to see more from me, go ahead and like this video, and also subscribe to the channel to be notified anytime a new chapter review comes up. Also, as I said in the last video, go ahead and follow me on our social medias, because I have some things coming out. Something else possibly coming out later this week if everything goes in my favor. So make sure you follow me on my Twitter, which is linked in the description. All of my social medias and anywhere else you can find me are linked in the description to be notified anytime something new happens. Yeah, but thank you guys so much. And until 2 weeks from now, when hopefully we get a little bit of explanation as to what is going on here, I will see you guys in chapter 1008.